Hello， 大家好，欢迎大家来到区块市的 Podcast， 我是区块市的作者许明恩。那先简单介绍一下区块市哦，区块市一个礼拜出刊3封的 email 给付费的会员，那其中一封就是你现在听到的区块市 Podcast。那另外2封讨论什么呢？这一集呢，其实一样，请大家直接到这个区块市的官网上面去搜寻就可以了。请大家这么做的原因呢，就是这一集我们又邀请到国外的来宾，那总不可能这前面他听我讲一大堆这个他听不太懂的中文，好像也不太好，所以我就会省略前面的这一段。总之，请大家这个直接到网站上面搜寻区块市趋势的事，然后你就可以找到所有的内容了。也欢迎大家用付费订阅来支持区块市的营运。好，那我们今天呢非常开心哦，可以再次越洋连线，然后这应该是我近期的第2次的挑战，就是全英文的内容。那访谈的来宾呢是我最近非常喜欢的一款产品，叫 Fluidkey。今天邀请到的是他们的共同创办人 Moritz。如果大家一样不知道我的英文在讲什么的话，你可以到这个 YouTube 上面去打开字幕，然后你就可以看到这一集完整的内容了。Okay, in fact, I'm very like Fluidkey, this product, but before we enter the Fluidkey product side, I would like to invite you to introduce your personal background, where you started, and why you entered the crypto space.
So I'm Moritz. I'm the co-founder of Fluidkey. I launched Fluidkey last year, and prior to that, I was working in digital media and marketing on a startup based in Africa. So I used to live in Ghana, then Nigeria, then Kenya, and work on a digital media for young people on social media that is called Pulse. And my background, even already in this startup, has always been also tech related. So I've always been interested in tech related topics. And I started using crypto personally as well to manage my funds, especially when you're based in a country like Ghana or Nigeria. You want to be able to ideally save some funds in stabler currencies like the US dollar or in ETH. And so I saw the need for crypto and the opportunity that crypto has pretty early because of that, and was personally very interested in this as well. And so I started really just, being involved from a personal level with crypto and being interested in the space. And I think generally, specifically, Ethereum is the kind of community and ecosystem I spent a lot of time in. And then at the end of my journey with the previous startup, I basically decided to say, okay, now is the right time to go full time in crypto and to also build something that actually solves some of the problems I was seeing when I was using crypto personally, right? And so that's why I founded Fluidkey, and happy to tell you also more about what Fluidkey is, but that's the short background about myself.
Yeah, because I'm also very curious about how Africa people use crypto. I just saw some news and reporting about Africa because their environment or financial infrastructure is not very sufficient. So there are a lot of crypto use case in the Africa. Can you share a bit more about how people use crypto there?
Yeah, happy to share a bit more about my experience there. I think generally the payment infrastructure when it comes to just like making payments is actually pretty good. I think there's this misconception that, to make payments in a country like Nigeria or Kenya, it's really difficult and so on. But the payment infrastructure is actually quite good. So you can make payments from bank accounts that are almost instant. You have something in Kenya called M-Pesa, which is this mobile money that also can be sent to any other mobile phone directly. And it works really well. I think the problem really that there is in these countries is that many of the currencies that people hold in these accounts, right, or the local currencies, that compared to the dollar are basically losing a lot of value, right? So while I was living in Nigeria, between the time I arrived in Nigeria and a year later, the value of the Naira, the local currency, almost halved compared to the dollar. So if you're saving in Naira, then you own half the amount you had a year ago in US dollar terms, right? And that's a big problem. And I think they're having access to dollar stable coins or to other cryptocurrencies that also hold value more strongly is a big use case. And so I think that's the biggest use case I'm seeing. I think the challenge, though, is that in many of these countries as well, there's quite heavy regulation around crypto, right? So it's sometimes quite difficult to get access to crypto. And I think a lot of the local governments obviously want to also protect the value of their currency, and they're seeing this as a threat. So there's this kind of tension as well around these topics. But yeah, that's my experience.
Okay, so after this experience, what's the trigger for you to founding the Fluidkey? And what's the core problem for you and your team aiming to solve?
As a crypto user, one thing I noticed pretty quickly, especially on Ethereum, is that you have this problem of having one account with one address, and every transaction that you make on this address, anytime somebody pays you, anytime you send money somewhere, they can all see all of your past financial history on this account, right? They can see who else paid you, what you did with your funds, how much you own. And that's a huge problem if you want to use crypto more than just, to play around, but to really also hold bigger amounts of money and to basically use it as your kind of on-chain bank. And so that's why we started really looking at the problem of privacy first. And I think this is kind of the starting point of Fluidkey, where Vitalik at the beginning of 2023, I think, wrote a blog post about stealth addresses. Yes. Stealth addresses, I can explain a bit more in detail later as well how they work, but basically it is a way to get better privacy by not using the same address every time, right? So you use a new address for every transaction, and therefore if you pay me and then another friend pays me as well, you will only send money to an empty address and you will not see that this other friend also paid me. And so the idea was already there, and there were already some protocols like Umbra that were implementing stealth addresses, but we felt like they weren't user-friendly enough yet. It was very difficult to use, and you need to really know what you're doing and so on and so forth. And so with Fluidkey, our idea was to combine stealth addresses with smart accounts. And with smart accounts, you can do things like gas sponsorship. So if you receive USDC on a stealth address, then you can pay your gas fees in USDC as well. And you can do a lot of other things that make the experience much, much simpler and much easier, and it feels more like a normal wallet, but under the hood you have much better privacy than a normal wallet. And so that's kind of the starting idea with Fluidkey and how we started building it.
I have to mention before Fluidkey how it's hard to use like this experience, because you need to open a wallet, and maybe that wallet supports you can add a multiple address. So if you want to transfer to somebody, maybe your friends, but you don't like to expose your account's net number, you have to use the centralized exchange or some work transfer around to multiple address to cover your original address, because that is very easily to trace back to your original one, and your friends just want to receive a amount of numbers of your maybe a dinner, but he know how much you own totally. It's an embarrassed case. Yeah.
No, 100%. And I think that's what we, as before founding Fluidkey, we were experiencing personally as well. And so that's why we, started Fluidkey, because exactly as you mentioned, basically before using Fluidkey, what I was doing sometimes is just spinning up a new account in my normal wallet, whether it's MetaMask or anything else. And then you have like all of these different addresses that you have to manage manually, and it becomes really difficult to manage. And it also doesn't give you good privacy, right? And so I think with Fluidkey, it's both easier to manage, but it's also better privacy, because it's really every transaction is on a new address.
But how Fluidkey easily or make it simple for this user? Because before Fluidkey, they may need to do a lot of work to hide their original address. But after Fluidkey, they can improve their user experience on this case.
Yeah, so the way it works is with a technology called stealth addresses. Stealth addresses basically are a way for a sender or a third party to generate a new address on your behalf, knowing that you will be able to control the funds when I send to this address, right? So with Fluidkey, you get an ENS, so you could have like astro.fkey.eth, and every time this ENS is added to a wallet, is typed on Etherscan, every time it's queried, a new address is resolved. So it's a new address that we know only Astro can spend out of, and only with your private keys you can spend out of. But it can be generated by a third party. It doesn't need to be generated by you. So I don't need to wait for you to, come online or to send me your address or to generate a new address in your wallets. You can just give me your astro.fkey.eth, and then automatically the address will be generated, knowing that only you can spend from this address. And so that's how the structure works. I think the previous implementations of stealth addresses were very much kind of more low-level implementations where you still have to do a lot of the technical work more manually by connecting your wallet to a website, even as the sender, generating a secret, and so on and so forth. And we took the approach of saying, okay, so the default privacy is basically 0, where you have one address, everybody can see everything. Now we want to improve this, and we are, with Fluidkey, basically issuing these ENS addresses that can generate these new addresses and give the user much better privacy, because now it's not just one address that everybody can see, but really every sender just sees the address they are sending to. So yeah, that's a little bit of the background there.
I would like to know more about how users use Fluidkey right now, what they actually do with it, or what the common use case you have seen.
Yeah, the biggest use case, and I think the main use case we're seeing right now, is using Fluidkey to receive and to move funds, basically, right? So if somebody wants to pay you, you share your Fluidkey ENS, and you can just receive the funds to Fluidkey. It goes to a new address. You don't have to worry about, showing any of the other details. And then you can also send those funds to anywhere else you want to send them. So payments, I think, and generally just moving funds on chain are the main use case. So both payments from third parties, but also sometimes users who want to, for example, on-ramp money, and they don't want to just send it directly to their public address. They can use Fluidkey to send it to their Fluidkey account, and then it isn't connected to all of the other, addresses, assets, and so on and so forth. So I think that's the main use case. I would say the kind of user base we have today are mostly individual crypto power users, so people who understand like why privacy is important and have bigger amounts of assets already on chain, and don't want to have this problem of having one address that ties all of their financial history together, and so they're using Fluidkey to have better privacy. So I think that's the biggest use case today. And what we're trying to do now, and what we're working on more and more as well, is to build Fluidkey really as a kind of financial home for crypto power users, where privacy is one very important feature, but there's also a lot of other things that are now available on Fluidkey, like the ability to earn yield automatically as soon as you receive assets, the ability to also send and receive bank transfers, and a few other things that are coming very soon. So this is how we're expanding now Fluidkey really to a full-fledged wallet and not just, this kind of stealth address middle layer as it started.
I can share in my point of view of the Fluidkey. I see Fluidkey as my checking account. When somebody wants to send me a crypto, I will share a Fluidkey sales address, a one-time address sent to them, so I can protect my original address, not to expose it. And when I want to send some amount to others, I also use Fluidkey to send this money. I have the same reason to protect my privacy. And the most favorite function I like in Fluidkey, I think, is the automatic yield in these accounts, because it's just like a checking account. It can automatically have some yield, and I don't have to other process to do that, to get the yield. For example, to do something in DeFi, put into Aave, put into Morpho. That is more complex to the normal people. So even I know how to do that, but I think that is extra steps to do these things.
100%, and I think you're not the only one. A lot of our users really appreciate this auto-earn feature we introduced more recently. The idea behind that is that, as you said, many people, especially in our user base, understand how lending pools and yield vaults work and how to deposit to Morpho and Aave. But still, it takes a few steps to do it every time. And then the moment you want to spend the money, you have to move the funds out again out of the vault. And so it is a process that is not super quick to do. And the way we are thinking about it with Fluidkey and the way it works with Fluidkey is that you basically automatically get that done without having to do anything on your side. So as soon as you receive USDC or as soon as you receive another token that can earn yield, you basically, thanks to our smart accounts and the module we built for these smart accounts, we have the possibility to automatically deposit these funds on your behalf. So the assets are always in your address that only you can spend from, into a vault like a Morpho vault, an Aave vault. And recently we also introduced a partnership with Summer Finance that allows us to give you always the best yield, the highest quality yield you can find across different vaults, and it rebalances automatically as well. And so the idea is that, you know, while your assets are in Fluidkey, and when you receive assets and have assets on Fluidkey, the moment they arrive, you right away, you know, earn yield on them. Right now, I think on EURC, on USDC, you have yield over 5%. So it's also yield that is much higher than what you'd get from, you know, a traditional bank account or anything like that. While being, I think, very battle-tested protocols, right? We're not looking to do something very high risk or anything where there's yield farming or anything like that, but really just good base yield so you can earn on your money while it's in Fluidkey.
I think some of audience or some user like to know more about the technical side of how you implement this into the Fluidkey, how it can automatically generate yield when some funds in your wallet.
So the way it works is that I think, first of all, what's important to mention again is that every address that is generated on Fluidkey is a safe smart account. And so with smart accounts, we can basically build in automations that give certain rights to different entities to move funds and so on and so forth. And so with Fluidkey, with this auto-earn feature, there's a smart account module that, if you enable it, does basically one thing. It allows us, our relayer, to move funds into an ERC 4626 vault on your behalf. So you can basically, in the configuration of the smart account, it says, you know, this address of Astro has the authorization to move USDC into the Morpho vault. And then our relayer can automatically move funds from your address into the Morpho vault, but the owner of these funds in the Morpho vault remains your address, right? We're fully self-custodial, so we never have access to your funds. And it's really just the permission to move the funds on your behalf into the 4626 vault. And so all of this technology and the module is also open source. So there's, if you go to the Fluidkey GitHub, you can, you know, see the code and also look into that more in detail. But yeah, it's basically an on-chain module built into these safe addresses that allows us to do this.
You mentioned before that you position the Fluidkey as a financial home for the user. I think this is very critical because the Fluidkey provides privacy by default. Yeah. And I think most of the wallets, the privacy feature is optional. You have to do extra steps to protect your on-chain privacy. But on-chain privacy is more and more important when users use stable coin or like crypto more frequently, and they will expose more privacy to the public. So I think this is the critical difference between the Fluidkey and other wallets.
100%. I think, you know, the problem with not having privacy by default is that the moment you want privacy, it's already too late, right? Like, if you have just one address and then you start receiving funds, at some point you're like, oh, now I have so much money on one address, and if I send this money to someone, everybody will see it. And it's already too late at that point, right? Like, it's very difficult to then get privacy from there. And you can do it, there are obviously solutions like shielded pools to move funds through a shielded pool and basically, break traceability between your public address and other addresses and so on. But it's not something that's easy to do, and it takes time. You usually have to deposit the funds for some time there and then take them out and so on. And so with Fluidkey, you don't have to think about it that way, because you by default basically get a good level of privacy. And that's really, I think, also why we're thinking about this product and Fluidkey generally as something that's great for financial use case, because I think the financial use case is something where you want privacy, right? You on your public wallet, you might want to have like NFTs, because that's more something that's like social, and you want to show to people, okay, I have these different NFTs and so on and so forth. But when it comes to the amount of money you have on your bank account, or who you're paying, what you're doing with your money, that's not something you ideally want to just like be publicly known, where I can just Google your ENS and then see your Etherscan link with all of your transaction history. And so, yeah, that's how we're thinking about it with Fluidkey.
I think everyone will say the privacy is very important, but in fact, the privacy also is a defensive feature. If there have nothing happen when you expose your privacy or to harm your privacy information to be leaked, if you ask people, people may say, oh, I think privacy is important, but I need more useful feature when they using the crypto in their crypto world. So I would like to know, how do you turn Fluidkey from a purely defensive tool into something people actively use in a daily life?
So first of all, I fully agree with you, right? Like, I think privacy is a really important feature, but on its own, it's not a product, right? Like, you want to do something with your money or with your crypto, and you want to basically, for example, earn yield. You want to be able to buy different tokens, hold these tokens, do different other things, right? And then privacy is an important feature you want to have. But privacy doesn't mean anything if you can't do the things you want to do with your tokens, right? And so I think that's why a lot of privacy protocols are sometimes struggling in, getting traction, because they're very focused on providing privacy, but they're not as focused on just providing a good general user experience and providing a good general kind of useful wallet where you can do things, right? And so with Fluidkey, from the get-go, and that's why we chose stealth addresses, and that's why we built Fluidkey the way it is. We thought about this problem from a user-first perspective, and our goal really with Fluidkey is privacy is a really critical feature, an important feature, but it's not the whole product, right? Like, the whole product is being able to earn yield automatically, being able to send and receive bank transfers, being able to swap at really good rates directly in the wallet, being able to access different EVM chains automatically, and soon there will be a card coming. There's different other things coming as well. And so the idea is really to build this financial home where privacy is one important feature, but privacy is not the product. It's just one feature in this financial home. And so, yeah, that's been our approach. We have a mobile app coming relatively soon as well, and I think that's also going in that direction, where we started with a web app, so on app.fluidkey.com, that's where currently users go to use Fluidkey. What that's helped us to do is to just start something very quickly, have something that people can use, and we can also iterate quickly with just one code base. But now we're at a stage where we have more users, and we want to build a product that is more polished and that is more simple to use, and really also gets to a point where you get everything you'd get from another wallet or another kind of financial application. And so the new app is coming very soon to deliver on that.
Looking forward to it. And some critics argue that privacy tools are not private enough, while others worry they will be misused for crime. How do you respond to these two very different views?
Yeah, so I mean, both views kind of, obviously have a point, right? There's always trade-offs, yeah? And there is the trade-off of, on our side, for example, stealth addresses are great to give you a much, much better level of privacy than a normal wallet, but it's not perfect privacy, right? You can still see addresses on chain, and you can, trace funds from a single address and so on and so forth. And so there are limitations that we talk about also very openly on the Fluidkey documentation and so on about what stealth addresses can do. But on the other side, I think it's the right technology to really give you the same experience as a normal wallet with much better privacy. And so we are very pragmatic and practical, and we think about this as like, what is the best privacy we can offer without making the user experience so bad that nobody will use this because it's just too many steps, it takes too long, and so on and so forth, right? And so that's why we're taking that trade-off. If you're someone that, for example, wants even better privacy than what we can offer today, you can also use Fluidkey in combination with other privacy tools, right? Like I think in general, privacy is not just about using one thing and then like it solves all of your privacy problems, but really kind of using a layer of different technologies. The same way you might use a VPN and you then use one-time emails and you use different other technologies to get better privacy. It's not just one technology that will give you perfect privacy. But I think we have an interesting tool to really also get better privacy that can be combined with other tools as well. So I think that's the kind of first part around Fluidkey maybe not giving enough privacy and how we think about it. And then generally as well, we obviously always want to improve those privacy levels. So we are always looking at also improving the technology we have today. And I think this is definitely not the kind of final shape Fluidkey will take. I think there are more ways to improve privacy over time, but these are really hard problems. And we want to make sure we have something that can be used today and kind of improve on that gradually versus, working for 4 years now on something that is very theoretical and isn't really available in production right away. So that's kind of been our philosophy since the beginning. So the second part is around people that say, privacy is bad and, criminals will use this and so on and so forth, right? Mm-hmm. I think, we are also very pragmatic about this. I think it's obviously not good if we have a world where, illegal activity can be done without being able to trace funds and so on and so forth. But I think the new kind of generation of privacy tools also really take that into account. So with Fluidkey, the way Fluidkey works, first of all, is that you're not mixing funds with any other entity. So if you use Fluidkey today and a hacker is using Fluidkey as well, you're not mixing your funds with the hacker. And so you're not helping the hacker to basically launder their money or, get more privacy. And so because stealth addresses are still traceable, it's actually relatively easy even to then still trace where the funds of like illegal activity went to. And so I would say Fluidkey as a criminal, I wouldn't recommend Fluidkey because it's not really the way you get good privacy. But for the average user, it's really good because you get the privacy you want. And so that's the first point. I think the second point is that even around other privacy technologies like shielded pools, there are now new ways like proof of innocence that technologies like Railgun, privacy pools, and so on are applying, where before funds can be added to a shielded pool, there are entities that are checking where these funds come from. And if there's a doubt about the origin of these funds and they might be linked to criminal activity, these funds are basically sent back to the address that they came from. So the pool can't, seize the funds or take the funds away, but the pool can make sure that a bad actor doesn't enter that pool and basically then taints the whole pool. So I think the kind of new generation of privacy technologies after Tornado Cash and so on is really also thinking about this problem. And there was a paper written by Vitalik and some of the founders as well of privacy pools that also go into this more. So I recommend also reading that if you're interested in this topic. But I do think that we can have good privacy that still makes sure that bad actors, don't have a free pass and can do whatever they want. And so I think that's kind of the future we're also working towards.
I think the Fluidkey may provide a very standard privacy use experience to the normal people. But if you want to a strong privacy feature, you can combine other privacy tool like the Veil or the Railgun or Tornado Cache. That is a lot of mixer or fun privacy tool on the web. You can use it by optional, not by default.
Exactly, because also sometimes even without the privacy part, like just from a practical perspective, sometimes it doesn't make sense to use a privacy pool, because then you have your funds stuck there for like 7 days, for example, with privacy pools. And so, sometimes that's not practical, but sometimes it's what you want. And so with Fluidkey, you can just decide what you do, and that's up to the user then. Yeah.
Yeah, I also think that maybe some people, they have some use case need a strong privacy, but the normal people, I think, can use the Fluidkey, the standard privacy. I think that is enough for most of the people. Okay, I have another question about, you just mentioned some integration in the Fluidkey, for example, the SAFE or the ENS, or I mentioned before the Veil. You also run the weekly token drops. How do you decide on this, and why did you want to add this feature?
Yeah, it's a good question. Yeah, we introduced token highlights basically because a lot of our users are really excited about the on-chain economy and the different projects and protocols that are emerging. And I think we've seen also a lot of projects, emerge, and I think our user base wants to be early to also see these projects and understand how they work, and kind of getting a better also technical understanding of how many of these things work. And so we thought it would be cool if every week we can, put a spotlight on one project and say, hey, this is a project we find interesting. Obviously, it's never financial advice, especially that doesn't mean that the tokens that this project has is going to be more valuable or anything like this. But we thought it's a cool mechanism to, first of all, shine a spotlight on this community. Also, often these communities then help reshare Fluidkey within their community. And on the other side, we give every user the opportunity to claim a few tokens from the project. And I think the nice part about this is that the more you use Fluidkey, the more you increase your Fluidkey score, and so the more you can also claim tokens. And it's just a nice way to also engage our user base and to kind of make sure there's something to look forward to every week when you're opening Fluidkey. So that's the idea behind it.
I very like this token highlight feature because I think this is very good engagement for the normal user. Even though some user may say the airdrop amount is very little, but I think that is more reasonable amount for the airdrop, because of if you airdrop a very big amount to the user, I think that is not sustainable. I would like to know the token, how you send this great amounts to the user, how it comes. So I think airdrop a little amount of the token weekly is a very good design for the Fluidkey.
Yeah, the idea really is not to, so I think there's two things. First, the claim is just so, you can claim the token right away and you get a small amount. As you said, it's never a big amount that you just hold in your wallet. I mean, we've seen it before. Some tokens sometimes then really increase in value. So maybe one of these tokens, it's like holding Bitcoin in 2013 or something. Maybe, one of these tokens will have more value, a lot more value in the future, but likely not, right? Like many of these tokens are possibly also just going to zero, and that's really important as well to know. And yeah, the idea is really to just, give you a small amount so you can also hold some of the token. And obviously it's very easy as well in Fluidkey to do swaps. So if you want to buy more of the token, you can also just do that within Fluidkey as well. But yeah, that's the idea behind it, really.
Okay. Looking ahead, what do you think the end game of privacy tool should look like? Is Fluidkey alone enough, or will there be other pieces needed in this area?
Yeah, so I don't think Fluidkey as it is today is the kind of end game and the final form of privacy on chain, right? And I think this is something we're also really thinking about a lot. We want to offer privacy that really is pragmatic and works with the best technology that is available today. And today I think stealth addresses are really also the best technology we can offer to users to have a good user experience. But I think as shielded pools evolve, as some of these technologies mature, we definitely want to integrate them as well into Fluidkey to build something that gives you the best privacy defaults possible from this one tool that is Fluidkey. And so I think the end game is probably a combination of stealth addresses for day-to-day use to just send and receive tokens, plus the ability optionally to also have something like a shielded pool to break traceability when you need it. And so we're not at the end game yet, right? Stealth addresses are first great layer to give users privacy. But we think that a combination of stealth addresses for day-to-day use and really being able to interact with public blockchains very easily with something like shielded pools is kind of the best of both worlds, where say you use Fluidkey, you receive small payments, you can directly use them with stealth addresses without having to do anything. But then maybe one day you receive a big payment, you receive $1 million, and you don't want to then use the $1 million from one address in small different parts to do different payments, because that would all tie together to the one stealth address that has $1 million. There is a shielded pool is actually a great solution, because you can then just move the money to a shielded pool, and then from the shielded pool, move these funds to different stealth addresses, say, $10,000 each in each stealth address. And then you can use those separately, and those are not connected in any way to each other. And then you get much better privacy again. So I think the end game is really combining stealth addresses with shielded pools to have the user experience and the flexibility of stealth addresses with the better privacy of shielded pools when you need it. That's, I think, kind of how we are thinking about privacy more long term.
Okay. I have only 2 questions left. From your experience so far, what has been the hardest part of building Fluidkey?
It's a good question. We are thinking about Fluidkey really as something that should today already add value to our users, right? And so I think the hard part with building Fluidkey is making sure that we're building it in a way where it adds as much value as possible to users, and it's also valuable to as many users as possible, right? We want to make Fluidkey something that, becomes a financial home for many users, right? We want to have thousands and more users that, every day use Fluidkey to manage their funds. And I think, as a young startup, you have to take the right trade-offs to kind of get there. And I think that's about making sure we don't get stuck on some kind of, very theoretical problem, but really always think about how, what does the user expect, and how do we really bring a product to the user that is useful today and can also evolve into something that becomes more and more useful over time. And so I think that's just something we're thinking about every day and is really important. And then kind of on the back of that, it's also just distribution, right? How do we reach the users that will find Fluidkey very useful? And how do we make sure that they know of Fluidkey and they start using Fluidkey and they actually also benefit from it? And so that's why I really appreciate also, you inviting me on this podcast, for example, because I think it's really important to have more and more people that really also use Fluidkey, believe in Fluidkey, and spread the word and talk about Fluidkey to others. And so we're really spending a lot of time as well now trying to build that momentum where Fluidkey has more visibility and we onboard more and more users every day to the platform. So I think that's kind of the short answer there. Yeah.
I think the audience may be more curious about the backend. Have you observed any surprising or interesting user behavior on that?
Look, I think, you know, what we're seeing on our side, I think just generally people start feeling more comfortable also using Fluidkey with much bigger amounts and with basically, I think, more serious use cases where since we launched Fluidkey, we've now processed about $250 million on the platform. And a lot of that volume came over the last few months, right? And so I think that's just a pattern that shows that the kind of Fluidkey user base is getting more comfortable using Fluidkey, not just to maybe do a test transaction, receive a small payment, but really also to use Fluidkey more often. And I think on the back of that as well, what's really exciting is that more and more people use Fluidkey to receive their salary. So we have users that are receiving their salary to Fluidkey either directly through crypto payments or through our bank transfer feature. So for example, if you are working for a company in the United States or in Europe, you can basically just share your bank details that are issued through Fluidkey to the company, and then they can pay your salary like they would pay it to any other bank account, and you receive it directly to Fluidkey in USDC. You start earning yield immediately. You have your money on chain in the self-custodial wallet. And I think that's really exciting. And that's something we're seeing more and more users do as well. Yeah, I think that's kind of also really what we're leaning into and trying to do more and more.
It's very good to hear from on your side. And I think very happy to chat with you about the Fluidkey and the founding story and your insight with us today. Really enjoy learning about this journey, and I think maybe the listener will find the findings as well. So thank you very much for attending this.
Yeah, thanks Astro for having me, and it was really a pleasure to be on your podcast. So yeah, thanks again for reaching out.
Yeah, thanks again for joining us. 感谢大家收听到这边。然后，如果你喜欢这一集的内容的话，欢迎到 Google 上面搜寻区块市趋势的事，你就可以找到所有的内容了。也欢迎大家用付费订阅来支持区块市的营运。那我们就录到这边，谢谢大家。